Fast forward 289. I'm Larry. Welcome back. Tonight, we're going to be working on my 351 Cleveland again. So we're going to be checking the cam shaft out and installing it into the block, and as well as installing the timing chains. Now, this camshaft is a used camshaft. I'm not going to be using these lifters. They came with it, but I'm not going to be using them. I ordered a new set of lifters. They'll be here in a couple days. So this camshaft is a used cam. It is a comp cams. And there's a cam card for it. It is a 255 DEH comp cams camshaft. It is basically a towing camshaft, low torque, cruising and towing cam, which is what I want for this engine because it's going in this truck here. So I want it to have nice low end power and pull hard off the line. And if I need to pull a trailer or whatever, I want it to pull effortlessly. So I've always liked this cam. My buddy gave it to me. It was in his 77 351 modified. And then he put it in his 400, then he decided he wanted something different. So he let me have it, so that's good. Now, this cam, I helped him put it in. It was ordered back in 2015. So 2014 or 15, in that range right there. So here is the cam card for it. So you see engine 4, 351 Cleveland 400, and 255 DEH. So, and these are all the specs on it. But what I want to do is I want to check this cam to make sure that everything is still right on it. Now, this will be a good tip for those of you that are ordering new cams. If I ordered a new cam, I would do the same thing. So these lobes, the way a cam is ground is on the lobe here on the top, at the top point where the lifter, where it opens the valve, where it lifts. There's supposed to be two different measurements. It's supposed to be two different heights here. So it would be lower on one side, higher on the other side. And the reason for that is so whenever, you know, your cam is running, and you have the lifter on there, with the different heights on the cam lobe, it will spin in the bore as the engine's running. Because you also have a crown on your lifter that also needs to be checked. I'm not going to bother checking these because I'm not using them. But when I get my new lifters in, I'll check the crown on them. But that crown on the lifter and then two different heights on the cam grind will cause this to spin in the bore, which is what it's supposed to do. So I'm just going to check to make sure that they both do have, or each lobe does have two different measurements. And then just obviously look at the wear patterns on it, make sure there's no scarring or anything like that before I put it in, just to double check everything. All right, so I went ahead and checked all of them. They're all about 0.002 difference. So I'm just gonna, it's kind of hard to hold this and show you, but I'm gonna do my best to show you what I mean. So we're gonna check the second lobe here. So if we come to one side of it, make sure that it's flat, and just rotate it until the dial caliper stops moving. Okay, so about 98 thousandths. About 98 thousandths. So that'd be 1 and 698 thousandths. Come to the other side. So we got about 696 thousandths. So I don't know exactly what the specs are as far as like tolerances of, but you want, you know, as long as there are thousandths, 2,000, it don't take a whole lot. As long as there's a difference between each side of the lobe. I said mine are all about 2,000ths, between 1,000ths and 5/10ths to 2,000ths. As long as it's within that range, you're good to go. You just want a difference between the two sides. Also, in case you didn't know, is each journal is also a different size. As you go, they get smaller. So like this one will be bigger, that one's a little bit smaller, that one's a little bit smaller, smaller. And the reason for that is when you go to slide it into the block, if every one was the same size, you would never get it to go all the way through. So they do that to step it down so it will go as it goes. Like if they were all the same size as this one, obviously when you got down to here, that one wouldn't fit. So they step them in size as it goes through the block. So bigger at the front, smaller at the back. I'll try to give you an example. So we measure the front one here. It's roughly about 2 and 122 3 thousandths. You know, so 1 and 2, or 2 and 123 thousandths. We come down to the next journal. Make sure it's flat. And we get about 2 and 76 thousandths. 78 thousandths. So you can see how it steps down. It'll be like that the whole way. All right, so I know the cam is good. I checked all the surfaces. They look clean. There's no scarring or marking on them anywhere. They have really nice smooth surfaces. I rubbed my finger on all of it. So I'm gonna wipe it down with some carburetor cleaner now, get all the old dirt and grease off of it. And then we'll get ready to lube it up with some assembly lube and then slide it into the block. And grab the cam and our bottle of assembly lube like we've been using. And I just do like a section at a time, slide it in, and then do another section, slide it in. And I got this long bolt on the end as a handle for when I get to the end of the camshaft, I can still have something to hold on to slide it in. Let's do a section, say about like that. Put a good amount on here. And then I'm just gonna rub it in. Another thing you can do is take some motor oil and also put on here, because of that assembly lube, that'll kind of help hold it on there to where it won't run off. And that's just extra lube for it. Really lubes it up. And since you use cam, it's not as crucial. It's already broke in, but still, I do them all the same, no matter if they're new or used. Now I'll let that sit there. The block will hold it for us, and then we're gonna do the rest of the sections. Now you want to make sure that when you're sliding this camshaft in, that your lobes are not scraping against your bearing surfaces. You don't want to scratch the bearing, because then you have a bad bearing, obviously. Now with the camshaft installed, I'll usually give them a little spin in there, let that lube get worked around on his bearings. All right, so this is the brand of timing chain and gear set that I went with. It's a Chloe's brand, really good brand. I've always liked their stuff. So inside, this is what we got. I went with a double roller timing chain and gear set because they're the best. They don't stretch as bad, and they last virtually forever. And I've never had a problem with them. And the bottom gear does have adjustable keyway, so if we have to move the cam timing around a little bit, we're able to do that. I think it adjusts it by 2 degrees, I believe, up or down, retarded or advanced. And then of course, obviously, the chain itself. Now, one gripe I have is for some reason they didn't include the paperwork in the box like they used to, but I still have this one from when I installed the same brand, same style in my 302 that's in my truck now. So this right here will tell you how to do it. And it says retard keyway is the square one, and then obviously factory is the round one, and then the advanced key is more of a like triangular one. So at least I kept this paper so I'll know which keyway does what. To start with, you always want to put it on 0 anyway, just to make sure. First thing we got to do is install our cam thrust plate. So just so it ain't dry, I always rub a little bit of oil on the plate. When you go to install these, you can't put it on but one way really. It don't matter which way you flip it. It'll go either way like this, but it won't go on but one way. So you see, it don't fit like that. If you turn it around, it fits like that. So what I'm going to install this is, I know this side was the one facing toward the cam because it's got a smaller outline of where the cam set. The camshaft had a bigger outset. So just to keep things consistent with this specific motor, I'm gonna put it back the way it was. So this is the way it was on my engine. So before we install the bolts, we're gonna put a little bit of medium strength thread locker. Then the spec on the thrust plate for a Cleveland is 8 to 10 foot-pounds. Mine goes as low as 10, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just torque it to 10. All right, now we can get ready to install our top timing gear. Because this thrust plate, what this thrust plate does is it lets the cam ride against it, obviously. That's why you got these oiling passages in here. And it also rides against this. So I put a little bit of oil on the back side of this as well. You got to grab our chain. It doesn't matter which way you put it on. It'll go either way. You want your timing marks to line up. So you got a dot on the top timing gear and a dot on the bottom timing gear. You want to line these two dots up together. So it turns out I ran into a bit of a problem here and we cannot continue on. So this is not the right timing chain for a Cleveland or 400 or modified, because I got looking, and when it was hitting this, you have like this ridge right here in the crank. Well, this will not slide past it. You know, once you get it to a certain point, like it'll slide up to it there, but then it stops and it won't go any further. And also I noticed that even if it did go all the way up to it, if you look through the fuel pump hole here, this is the cam gear. Right, so I pulled the cam because I was wondering, you got play in this as well. And the cam gear is all the way back. So even if I pull the cam all the way out to the thrust plate and then put this on there and pretend like it's buttoned up to where it's supposed to be, the teeth do not line up. So this is the incorrect timing chain for this. And now that I think about it, I should have known that, because I think this timing gear might be too small anyway. So I should have known that just by looking at it. But I grabbed my old cam gear. This is why I hold on to all my old parts before I throw them away, because this is the original cam gear, or crank gear, I mean, for this engine. It came off this engine. And you see it slides right up there, no problem. And then it actually lines up with the cam gear pretty good. So I'm gonna have to go make a trip to the auto parts store tomorrow and get the correct timing chain. And yeah, I also have my original top cam gear with the nylon teeth still, and you can see it's quite a bit bigger than this. So yeah, that's definitely the wrong setup. I don't know why I didn't catch that when I first went to go install it, but this is for a 302. This is not for a Cleveland. All right, so made a trip to the parts store, and this is what I ended up with. They did not have a Chloe's with an adjustable crank gear like I wanted, a double roller like I wanted. So went with an Edelbrock Performer Link, which is fine. Edelbrock's a good brand. I have no problems with them. So this will work, and it is an adjustable keyway. So this is the part, and it's a beautiful piece. And I do like how it is listed, or is marked on here. Look, made in USA. That's always good. It obviously has 0 for your just straight up and down cam timing, and then R for retard timing, and then A for advanced timing. So that's cool that it did that. Now, here's one gripe. I don't know what it is with these manufacturers, but they need to get on the ball. There's no paperwork to explain how many degrees or whatever it does. Now, it's kind of irritating, but at least this brand, at least Edelbrock, does mark on the gear itself which keyway is what, and it from what I looked on the website, it says that it retards it or advances it 4 degrees, either one way or the other. So it don't matter. So 4 degrees in either direction. So, but that's on the website. But why they didn't put a piece of paper in here or put it on the gear itself, I don't know why. But whatever. Point is, we got a nice timing chain here, and it's a really good looking unit. I'm very pleased with it, and I already kind of test fitted it just to make sure, and it does work. All right, so just like I started to do before. We're gonna slide this in on the 0 position to start with. We degree the cam, and then we'll figure out if we need to advance or retard the cam at all in any way. My guess is no. Even though this is a different brand, I'm sure it'll be perfect on the 0, but we're gonna put it in on 0 and check it anyway just to start with. It actually slides on and off, so that's good. We're gonna leave it out a little bit so we can slide it back with the cam gear. All right, just like before, we're gonna put a little bit of oil around this surface here because this is where it rides against this thrust plate. We can install the chain. And I usually like to just kind of rotate mine just to make sure the chain actually does lay flat all the way around easily. You shouldn't have to push it or force it on there anyway, or anything like that. And this one's good to go. Okay, so just like before, dot match the dot. And you want to line it up as perfectly centered as possible. So I always start with my crank up in the right position, is as far as top dead center as the eye can see. And it's back all the way, so that's good. Once we put our bolt in here and tighten it down, it'll pull the cam close to it like it's supposed to be. But that is on there. So now the only thing left to do is put the cam eccentric on here and our bolt and torque it down. And I have a little story about this, just as a little neat or thing that I ran into. So I went to go put my cam eccentric on here, and if you look, my tab is broke off. There's supposed to be a tab on the back of this, like this one has. This is the one that came out of this engine. Now I noticed when I went to go put this in there that this tab was kind of bent almost flat. So I went to go bend it back out and it just broke off. Well, apparently at the factory, whoever built this engine at the factory, whoever put this timing chain in at the factory, they must have gotten in a hurry, not paying attention. And what happened was that tab that's on the back of these eccentrics is supposed to fit in the same hole that the guide pin for the camshaft slides into. Well, you can see on the original cam gear, the guide pin is all the way flush with the front here. There's no recess. The pin was not in the cam all the way. It was more in the gear. Now, I don't know, at the factory, maybe they put the pin in the gear first and slide it up there. I don't know. Maybe it's up to the builder how they do it or how they did it. But so what ended up happening was you can see a mark right here where instead of putting it in that hole, they just put it right there and just cranked down on the bolt, and it dug into the aluminum and bent the tab on the eccentric, which caused the tab to break. So what I had to do is, luckily I have another 351 Cleveland. So this is the other engine that I had. I went and pulled it out from outside, and luckily, you know, this one here too is also an original engine that has never been gone into, never been rebuilt. I took the eccentric off of this, and this one was perfect. I just cleaned it up, and now I'm gonna use this one. So, but you can see how the pin's supposed to be back a little bit in the gear. That's the way it's supposed to be. And yeah, so that one, this one, that piece there was good. And you do need to make sure of when you're installing these is we can go ahead and tighten this down as a test fit. What we need to make sure is when this is tight, that this back piece can actually turn. If it's rubbing, then we got to make sure that it's going to clear once it's all tightened down. So and see, now it's tight. It's not spinning. So we're going to have to look at that. Okay, so I found a solution to my problem. So now you can see I can push. It has just a little bit of slack, and I can actually push up against it, and it spins freely. I can sit here and it spins like it's supposed to. What I originally ended up doing is I actually took this washer. I found this flat washer, and I had to drill the hole out just a little bit bigger to fit the bolt, but I was going to put this behind it to space it out, which would have worked. But instead, I thought what I would try to do is, this is the same center eccentric out of that engine, but this outside ring is actually the one that came in this engine. I figured I would just try just to see what it would do if I swapped the two, or took the two pieces basically and made one good one basically, and it actually worked out better. So this way I don't need to have a spacer. It works perfect like it's supposed to, and I don't have to worry about it now. Okay, so we put the cam bolt in. The spec is 40 to 45 foot-pounds with some blue Loctite. Now I'm gonna check the camshaft in play. From what I found in my book, they don't give you a range. It just says no more than 9 thousandths play. So we're just gonna say as long as it's between 2 to 9 thousandths is good. So if we look, we got a zero. I pushed the cam all the way back, and I just got in the center of the bolt because that's the center of the camshaft instead of putting it up at the top or anything. So it's at 0, and we're just gonna pull out on the cam, and you can see we have 5 thousandths. I actually have about 6 thousandths, so it's 5 to 6 thousandths. It's right next to the 6 thousandths mark. So there we go. Zero it out. We got 6 thousandths, so we're perfectly fine in there. So that's good to go. If you do have more than 9 thousandths, replace your thrust plate. That means it's wore too much. One last thing to check before we put the timing cover on is you want to look in here, and to the best of your ability, just look to make sure that your cam gear and crank gear and the chain is lined up straight, that it's not at an angle. There's no, looks like where it could be binding or anything. And another thing you can do is you should have just a little bit of play in this right there. So I mean, so that's good. Also, when you're installing this, this is the oil slinger is what they call it. Not all engines came equipped with it, but from most of the 70s engines did, from what I've seen. The ones that haven't been screwed with over the years, people throw them away because people don't usually put these back. I always do, because your harmonic balancer will slide up here, go inside this cup area, and all it does is help keep oil off of the shaft or the harmonic balancer to help keep your seal from leaking. So, and slings oil around as well. So, but so I always put that back whenever you start to put it on. It can be a little tight. I just took me a punch and a hammer and lightly tapped it all the way until it gets to this part where it's kind of steps down, and then you got slack in it. But up until here is really tight. So that's just what I do. All right, so that's all for this video. This just to show how to install the cam and timing chain and gear set, and how to work around that little issue that I had. So it's been a little bit of a challenge to get the cam in this engine, let me tell you, or get the timing chain, I should say, in this engine. But we finally got it. Now the next thing to do is I need to degree the cam, which I will do. And I'll put that in the next video. And then we put the timer cover on, and then finally the oil pan gaskets, and tighten the oil pan down, and then the bottom part of the engine is done, and then it's time to move on to the head. So hope you stay tuned to the next video. That's all there is for this one. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the drop box down below. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.